All right, let's get straight into our first topic then. And we're asking, do you still trust Starmer? Get your calls in for this one now. So a video of Keir Starmer on Jeremy's show 2 years ago is doing the rounds on social media. Take a look at this.
When I was growing up, my dad was a toolmaker, worked in a factory, my mum was a nurse. We didn't have huge amounts of money, and I remember struggling with the bills and the telephone being cut off and things like that. So I know firsthand what it feels like to sit around the kitchen table and say, look, I just can't actually pay all this. And I know that millions of people are in that state of mind at the moment. They're worried sick. That's why I thought it was very important for us to have a very clear, simple policy. We'll freeze your bills. We won't allow that to happen. And we'll get oil and gas companies from their excess profits to pay for that freezing of the bills.
Now, that was a promise that he made before coming into office. However, yesterday it was announced that the energy price cap is set to rise again in April, meaning that the average household will see bills go up by £111. The Tories point out that this is the third increase since the election. So do you trust Starmer, or does this U-turn make you question the other promises that he's made? Emily, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, yes, I still do trust Keir Starmer. I think he's an honest, decent bloke who is absolutely trying to do the best thing for our country. I think whatever your political persuasion, you know, red, blue, yellow, green, politics is a very, very difficult game. And, you know, this was almost 3 years ago, this clip. You know, we've since had the Russian invasion.
2 years ago.
Oh, OK, we're going to split hairs. Come on. 2.5. It was August, 2.5 years ago. I mean, that's, you know, we're in February.
Okay.
Almost 3 years ago. And that was, you know, I think that was only just after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I don't think anyone could have predicted that here we are still 3 years on, and we are, and so that, which has really seriously affected energy prices throughout the world. And I think that, you know, the government has done a lot of things to help people with their individual bills. I know that Carole will come in a minute. I mean, you know, there are 3 million households will be eligible for discounts on energy bills next winter. This includes those with nearly 1 million with children, and will mean that by the time this winter coming, will mean that there are almost 6 million homes that will receive help. But on a wider point, I know Carole will come back in a second, but on a wider point, I just want to say that I think that energy security and clean energy is the way forward here. I know we're going to talk about climate change in our next debate, but I do think that I take a wider view. We just can't subsidise people's bills unendingly. No government can do whatever their political persuasion. And so I think we have to have much more energy security here in the UK, and we have to commit to clean energy and not relying on fossil fuels, which is why, by the way, an Ofgem is independent. It's not the government putting up the prices.
Well, this is
Ofgem.
What
we have to be able to rely on clean energy, and that takes a very, very long time. Whether it's green energy, whether it's nuclear energy, a government can't just click its fingers and go, "Oh, here we go. We're going to build, you know, 4 nuclear power stations, and suddenly we don't have to rely on fossil fuels." It is long-term energy policy that drives down household bills eventually.
But hold on, I thought your main defence was going to be part of his promise was a cap. The Prime Minister can't promise a cap because he doesn't set it.
Not.
Ofgem sets the cap. So was this a slip of the tongue, or was this purposely misleading us?
Storm, this is like everything he's done before he came into power and since he's come into power. He's made so many promises that he's broken. He promised he wouldn't raise taxes. He did. He said he wouldn't.
No, he didn't. He said he wouldn't raise income tax.
I'm sorry. OK. No, what about the national insurance? He's raised that.
Tax for working people?
Yes, taxes for working people. I'll let you speak, let me speak.
But the national insurance tax was on employers, not employees, and that was the loophole.
It has a knock-on effect on employees, as we see now, because lots of people are going to be losing their jobs and companies are going to close. OK, he promised he wouldn't raise taxes for working people. He did. He said he would keep the pensioners' fuel allowance, which he has not. He said he would cut tuition fees and he would scrap the 2-child benefit scheme. He hasn't done that. He said he would build a new relationship with businesses. He shafted businesses big time, and many of them are now closing. He has lied about every single thing he promised. He scrapped the 28 billion Green Deal. He said he was going to abolish universal credit. He hasn't. He said he was going to stop the boats. He hasn't. He doesn't have an immigration plan. This guy lies for a living. And anyone, you know, you say he's got integrity.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a scrap of integrity. If he had a scrap of integrity, he wouldn't have his clothes and his glasses bought by one of Labour's biggest donors. It's outrageous. He's a rich guy. Why does he have to have other people buy his clothes? You know, his government is a shambles. He has no judgment. I mean, he's had to sack 3 of his ministers already. He promised on that, I think I might have been on that show actually, he promised that he wouldn't raise, I remember him coming on thinking, where's your shirt and tie? Anyway.
Did you take him on, Carole?
I didn't say that, but I did think that actually, but anyway.
Dress properly.
But I just think the guy has, you know, he's had to sack 3 of his ministers already. He's got no judgment on people, and he's just hopeless at politics. And I just can't, you know, his popularity rating is something like -38, worst prime minister in the last 50 years. 65% of people say they do not trust him and do not think he's doing a good job. So I don't know how you can sit there and say he's good and people still like him. They don't. Big mistake.
Okay, I'm keen to get to the calls, but Emily, is there anything that you really object to about what Carole's just said? There's a whole list of things there that that Carole feels he's U-turned or lied about.
I don't think it's right to say that he's lied. I think the
problem... He has lied.
No, he hasn't.
He made promises.
Hang on tax. On tax, he said no rise in income tax. I actually disagree.
He has done over pensioners.
He said no rise in income tax. Yeah, let me speak. He said no rise in income tax, and the national insurance contributions.
He didn't say that. He said no taxes on working people.
But he didn't tax working people.
He didn't tax working people. He taxed the employers. Now, we can argue until we're blue in the face about,
we can argue until we're blue in the face, but the fact is, a tax on employers is a tax on people.
It is not directly affecting people in their pay packet.
Right,
it's directly affecting people.
I'm going to go to the calls now. Linda from Tyne and Wear. Do you trust Keir Starmer?
Not at all. No, I don't. I'll bring on Carole Malone. She's the only one that talks any sense.
OK, why is it that you don't trust him then? What particular policies do you feel that he has lied about?
Well, I think what he did to the pensioners over the fuel, I think it was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. He didn't
lie about that, though, Linda. He never said that he wasn't going to take that way.
And they all do.
No,
he's lied about everything.
But hold on, Linda. If you're going to accuse someone of lying, I need a before and after. So I need, when did he say that he was not going to take away the winter fuel payments? And then he did. But I don't think there was ever a point he didn't say that he said he was going to not take away the winter fuel payments.
Stormy hinted very strongly that he was going to keep it. And but he also...
But that's not the same thing as lying.
You're splitting hairs now. But he also criticised the Tories big time for suggesting that they might take it away. He said, how can you do that? That's appalling. So to say it's appalling and then to do it, what does that say about him?
Well, I mean, there would be an argument to say that that was a party that was that was the party and that was to hold the party
sitting government to account. The sitting government to account.
No. It was to hold the sitting government to account, and so that was essentially their job. Maybe that would be an argument for that.
So that's what we're doing with him now.
So we've got the pensioners then, Linda. You're very disappointed about his choices there. Is there anything else that's particularly upset you?
I think a lot of things, but I can't just think of them all at the minute now. I'm 83-year-old, and I just find the man appalling. One of the worst we've had to face. He's not for the working people. He is not for the working man. Labour was always supposed to be for working people, people who were honest, good working people. He is not for that at all. He accepts every handout he can get for himself and his wife. No, I'm sorry.
Linda, can I ask you a question? Up until Starmer, did you used to vote Labour?
Iffy. Bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into that.
Because I think a lot of
I hated Blair also.
Yeah, because I think a lot of lifelong Labour voters have turned against him, and that's the real test. I mean, I always knew he'd be a disaster, but I think a lot of lifelong Labour voters hoped for better.
What made you think he was going to be a disaster?
Because he's hopeless. I mean, I've seen how he is in
hold
politics.
On, how did he prove that before he came into power?
Because he was called, remember, before he was elected, he was called Mr. U-turn, Mr. Flip-flop. He kept on putting policies out there in various manifestos, and then he kept on changing them because none of the policies were going to work. Because the minute he put a policy out, a load of analysts would come out and say this won't work because, and if you've met him, he's hopeless.
No, I think that is really unfair, actually, on a personal level and also on a macro level, because I think personally he's a very loyally, legal, scholarly man who deeply cares about this country. He's really attention to detail. I agree with you. If you tell me he's a technocrat, I agree.
And
you're right. Yes. I think his political brain, that's why he's got Maurice McSweeney, to be his political brain. But actually, the fact that he wants to do the right thing and do a good job.
So why does he keep on doing the wrong thing?
We should laud him for that. that.
No,
and applaud
he
it
keeps on doing the
because
wrong
he's not.
thing.
Look at Boris Johnson, who was much more
listen to Linda.
absolute
Hold on,
venal.
you're just talking over
Linda
each other
has
now.
just said he is not for the working man or woman. I think a lot of people in this country see that now. Almost every policy he's passed punishes the working man and woman.
One thing that Keir Starmer is credited with by his supporters is being loyal, and time again people say that he is a loyal character. When it comes to Jeremy Corbyn, not so much.
Yes.
Well, I think that you have a decision to make as a politician. I mean, if you want, I'll answer your question. It's not a question, Storm, but I'll take it. If you have a decision to make as a politician, you either say, I'm going to resign, or I'm not going to serve in a shadow cabinet, or, you know, Kemi, I don't support what she says on women's rights or whatever, so that's it, I'm out. Or you say, you know what, Jeremy Corbyn, in my opinion, was I don't want to get accused of it's my opinion, isn't it? I think that Jeremy Corbyn said, I think that many of the things that he said and many of his policies could be argued to be anti-Semitic, and so you either have a position. If you're a member of the Labour Party, you don't know you don't like the way the Labour Party is going and with momentum and everything like that. You can either go, right, that's it. I'm going to go and not serve in the shadow cabinet, and I'm just going to leave let the Labour Party burn. Or you say, I'm going to be a progressive. I'm going to look at where the Labour Party should be in 5 years or in 10 years' time. And I'm going to try and rescue what I think the Labour Party should be and return it back to where
so you played the game a bit.
Party. Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
But
he played the game.
in which case,
And actually,
you just had a long say. So if you've just said, as you did, that he thought that Corbyn was anti-Semitic, why then did he support him as leader for the party? Why did every time he was asked about Corbyn?
Made that clear. He was playing the game. He was doing the politics. He was playing politics.
Which means
he was making Labour electable.
He
was making Labour electable again.
Which means he doesn't have integrity, and it means he can't be trusted because he's playing the political game.
OK, Linda, thank you very much for your call. Bernard from Norwich, what's your view?
I think Starmer's doing a great job. I'm going to tell Carole why.
Go on.
I'm really interested, Bernard.
I didn't want Labour to... I'm a Labour voter. I didn't want Labour to get in because the country was in such a state. I'm a working class person, worked hard all my life, saved on what I can. I don't care who get in. Where is all the money got to come from, Carole? You live in another world, Carole. I'm sorry.
No, I don't live in another world, Bernard. I live in the real world. And if you think Starmer's doing a good job, you're not in tune with the rest of this country, because every time they do a poll, the people dissatisfied with the job he's doing gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
I think what Bernard's saying here is it was a hospital pass, essentially. I know we just seen Sir Keir Starmer walking around a hospital there, but it was essentially a hospital pass. Any party that was going to pick up after the Conservative government at this point was being handed a poison chalice. And I think what Bernard is getting at here, this is what Bernard's getting at here, is that actually the decisions he has made now are to save that money.
Well,
so there's going to be huge swathes of the population that are going to be unhappy.
Simply not true. We have a situation now where inflation is rising again, where we have complete stagflation, which we didn't have before. Our economic output has been forecasted, has been brought down because of everything Starmer and Rachel Reeves have done.
That's not true. That's not true. We're in a completely different, we are also, you can't just say that everything that happens in the world is completely alien and doesn't affect the UK economy.
When the Tories tried to use as a reason COVID and the war, that was poo-pooed and put away. Now you're using that.
I think that's part of the problem, though, isn't it? It's part of the problem, the way we talk about politics, the way that politicians say what, to get elected, because, often with politics, it's just, regardless of the Tories or Labour or the Lib Dems or the Green Party or whomever, obviously it is about popularity, it's about winning elections. But then actually governing is about making long-term decisions that often, and we have 5-year terms, often these decisions that have to be made. Hang on, let me just finish.
No, I'm sorry, you can't get away with saying long-term...
Often governments have to make long-term decisions. You can't get away with saying... Obviously in our short-term political system can be very difficult.
You cannot say you can make a long-term decision that means your country for the next 2 or 3 years is in stagflation and losing money and inflation is rising and interest rates are going to rise.
You don't don't think tariffs in America. You don't think tariffs in America that Donald Trump's bringing in. But you can't see you care about what's happening in America when it has direct relevance to us and
You're
Europe.
both speaking over each other and nobody can hear anything you're saying.
She's not letting me get a word in.
No, but you're not letting her finish a sentence either, Carole, so I'm going to put you both on pause. Bernard, thank you very much for your call. That's not really how you deal with that situation, is it, Carole? Dominic from North Lanarkshire, I'm going to allow you to get a word in. What's your view?
Come on, Dominic.
Right, hello. He's the worst Prime Minister in our country. I don't trust him. People are frightened. We're frightened. We don't know what he's going to do next. The clamping down the free speech, the tax rises, everything he's done is just against everything that he said he was going to do.
Exactly.
But Dominic, is it against everything that he said he was going to do? The two-child cap, he didn't say whether... He said he would like to get rid of the two-child cap and he still wants to get rid of it. He says financially he can't do it. He didn't say that he wasn't going to get rid of the winter fuel payments, and he said that he was going to defend the triple lock, and he did. You know, the only bit that we can see a U-turn really is on the clip that we've seen earlier, where he was going to put a cap on energy prices, but he doesn't have the authority to do that. So it's a bit confusing as to why he said that. What bit is it that you're particularly scared about? I understand there's a cost of living crisis and people are getting more and more fearful of their prices rising. But is there an argument to say that he's making the hard decisions now to make things better in the future?
So, well, I think the pensioners have paid into the system, and you've got a new 100-year deal for a pact with Ukraine, and he should be spending all this money for the pensioners, the people at home.
But he is. He's put a triple lock on the pensions. Dominic, pensioners are still getting their pension, and those that are particularly the most vulnerable pensioners are still getting their winter fuel payments, along with the most vulnerable in society. So he's taken away, arguably, he's taken away the winter fuel payments from the wealthiest pensioners while still giving them a triple lock on their pensions.
I'm sorry, I disagree. There's a lot of pensioners around that are a lot worse off and are struggling to make ends meet. A lot of pensioners are struggling to make ends meet nowadays.
I mean, the bit that you could say that he U-turned was the waspy women. But
no, Labour never actually made any promises. Yes, Rachel Reeves, Angela Kane, Angela Rayner, Liz Kendall all were campaigned. They did campaign alongside the waspy women in personal capacities, but it was never ever
a Labour.
It was never a Labour policy. It was never an election promise.
Starmer spoke out.
Accuse him. Hang on, don't talk across me. You can't accuse him of lying when it was never a Labour election promise.
Carole.
No, it's fine.
Carole, you have to wait till someone finishes a sentence to get in.
But you can't say it wasn't a political thing. They did it in a private capacity. These women did not do it in a private capacity. They did it in their capacity as politicians, and they were photographed alongside these women as politicians, and Starmer himself spoke out in favour of waspy women. Now, don't tell me that when people speak out in favour of something, they're not committing. And every one of his manifestos, he's the promises, the tuition fees. He said he was going to drop them. He hasn't done it. He said he was going to abolish the House of Lords. He hasn't done that.
Well, he got rid of hereditary peers.
He said he was going to stop the boats. He said he had an absolute faultless immigration policy in place. He hasn't got a policy in place. It took him nearly 8 months to appoint someone in charge of border control. He hasn't got a plan, and immigration has got worse since he came to power, and mainly because he doesn't want to control immigration. Okay. So that was a lie to people.
Dominic, thank you very much for your call. I'm going to go to another caller. Graham from Cheshire, your view.
My view is I feel that he cannot be trusted.
Yeah.
I've been a union rep for 25 years and a Labour member. I have now resigned from the Labour Party because there's no difference between this government and a Conservative government.
Oh, so Graham, you think he's gone too right-wing, do you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I won't ask you about the defence budget. That obviously we're now going to spend more on our defence budget because Starmer's going to go and see Trump today. But can you give me any other reasons why you think that this Labour government has gone too right wing?
One, the winter fuel allowance.
Yeah.
I used to work for DWP, so I know the rules and whatever. Now, if you apply for the winter fuel allowance if the pension credit, if you're 1p
yes, exactly.
above it,
the cliff edge,
you lose it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Graham, I think the winter fuel payment's going to come up time and time again when it comes to Keir Starmer. But thank you very much for your call. I'm only rushing because I need to get to this break. Thank you very much for all your calls. Don't go anywhere.